How did you get involved in 2001?
Well, one day I was filming with Laurence Olivier in London and came home at the end of the day, and my wife said, "Your agent called." So call him. I called New York the next morning, I guess, because it was, no, I called the same day because it was earlier. And my agent, out of the blue, just said, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "No." He said, "You better sit down." I said, "Why?" "You've just been offered the lead in Stanley Kubrick's next film."
How far before the film was ultimately released in 1968 did you first become involved in the process? If you can't put a calendar year, was it years?
I arrived in December of '95 to get acclimated. I may have not started shooting till maybe the first week in of '96. '96, I mean '66.
Did you arrive in a fully realized set or location?
Well, there was
how much realization had been done when you arrived?
Well, there was. He was already filming the central. Well, there's in 3 sections of the film. There's the Dawn of Man sequence, which was done at the end of the shooting schedule. So they began with the scientists going up to the satellite to find out what this monolith is, etc. That was the first thing. So I came in while they were still shooting that, toward the end of that shooting schedule, and met some of the people. But I was there to be fit the spacesuit and the costuming and makeup and a whole bunch of stuff that I had to do, and it gave me time to become acclimated and get to know Stanley a little bit and get to know my co-star, Gary Lockwood.
What did the first script look like? Do you recall what the first script?
Well, if you can imagine that this film is such a visual, almost no dialogue at all. How you would present that in a script? Probably, yes, I did get a script, but I suppose that's the script they had to show the front office at MGM so that they knew what might happen. But come on, I mean, there was nothing in that script that would possibly given you the idea of what the visual experience of seeing that film was going to be like.
Well, then how did you start your process as an actor? How did you start breaking down a script that was mostly, let's say, prose-based, descriptive?
People say, you know, how do you do, what's the difference between doing a Western or a science fiction movie or a detective movie, you know? If you're doing a Western, the principles of acting are the same, it's just you put on a cowboy suit. Right. You know, you have relationships, and so I really just developed a relationship with my fellow actor. We got to know each other well, and what little bit of dialogue, kind of it was really a kind of simple reality. The only thing Kubrick said that he didn't want the characters we were doing to look like typical. Most science fiction up to that point had been grade B films, and the human beings were kind of wore outlandish costumes, you know, Flash Gordon type stuff, and or the older scientists would always have a goatee, and there were certain stereotypes he really wanted to keep away from, and so we had very detailed bios.
Was Arthur Clarke on the set with you?
He was on
discourse between the two.
He was on the set. I certainly met him early on. He may have been on the set for the first week or so. Don't forget, they'd been working together for like 2.5 years. You know, Kubrick, on average, would spend 4 years with each project. He only did 2.5 films per decade. So he worked a long time on his films. So they had a long relationship.
Give us your reflections on Kubrick, the process and even the post-process, and looking at his...
Well, he was a very quiet man. He had a lovely kind of quiet, droll sense of humor. He really, I felt, very supported, I should say, very supported by him, and Gary would have said the same thing. He would invite us to his house for dinner on our day off very often. He had this huge estate in north of London, and we'd go up there, and he would have such fascinating guests at these meals. I mean, people from all walks of life, and what you he spoke on a level with each of these people, be they scientists or writers or whatever their disciplines were, as if he were one of them. I was very conscious that I was in the presence of genius, and I don't know what more I can say about it, except, you know, and so much of the work, because he was the most prepared director I ever worked with, ever, so much, I mean, the sets were built. I mean, it was like walking into Disneyland. They were extraordinary sets. They really were. It did a little of what they used to do in silent movies, because there was so little dialogue. You know, you could do whatever you want in terms of sound, and they'd cut it out later if you made a mistake or whatever. For the sequences when I'm going through time and space, before I end up in that strange, the zoo, as you call it, he played classical music on the set for me. And what he chose, there was a particular piece of music. You should go listen to it if you're interested, because it was perfect. Vaughan Williams wrote a piece called the Antarctica Suite, and there is one movement in the suite which is very mysterioso. It is really mysterious and strange, and it put me right where I had to be for that sequence.
Did you ever think, what are they thinking? Was there ever any apprehension? And where did the trust of Kubrick come from? He was still rather early in his legacy. Was there ever any reticence on your part to jump in?
Nope, not with Kubrick. Maybe with any other director. But somehow there was something up, and again, I said I was already a Kubrick fan, and I somehow sensed that Kubrick could do no wrong.
What did you think of doing scenes with a piece of hardware?
Well, you had to treat it like another character.
Yeah.
He hired a British actor who had done film by the name of Nigel Davenport to do the voice off camera, so that we had a voice to work with, but he realized very quickly he didn't want a British accent for the part. So he turned to his first assistant, the first AD, and said, Derek, you do the voice for the boys. Well, this is throughout the rest of the shooting schedule, which was most of it, this is how Hal sounded. Dive, better take a stress pill. That was all like working with Michael Caine. Oh yeah, I kid you not. And so, Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer true. And that's how that was done the whole time. So that took acting. That was acting.